Welcome to this new lesson. It's a quick note about editing raw images in Photo. First off, what is a raw image? In your project folders, you'll see under the photos next to the San Dimas Towers JPEG image, a .raf image. This is a raw file coming from my Fujifilm camera. You'll notice that it's a lot larger, 50 megabytes compared to 13.8. 13.8 is still a pretty high quality JPEG, and you can do a lot with a higher quality JPEG for most instances. But there are a lot of times when a raw image is going to give you more information, more room to play with in terms of editing your photo. You can edit specific parts such as just the highlights, just the shadows, bring back a lot of missed photos where it's too dark or too bright. You can fix that a lot easier when you have the full raw image. So when you are shooting photos, that's if you don't know anything about photography, that's just one thing to note. With most cameras, you can shoot in RAW mode, which is going to give you the full uncompressed image that it's all the information that your camera's sensor is capturing, compared to a JPEG image, which your camera is actually compressing. And whenever you compress something, you're losing data, you're losing information. So what happens when we try to open this in Photoshop? You'll notice that a brand new window opens up with it called Camera Raw. You should have Camera Raw installed if you installed Photoshop from Adobe. If not, if you should be able to install for free through Adobe Creative Cloud, your desktop app. It's kind of a sidecar application that I would say is definitely necessary for Photoshop because you'll want to be able to use this. You'll notice that there are a ton of options. This is super intimidating for someone who looks at this for the first time. You've got a toolbar at the top. Over here you have panels with a bunch of tabs. You could basically do anything you want to edit this photo. It's very similar to the options you have in Adobe Lightroom if you've used that. And in this video, I'm not going to go through all of these different options. I have a full section later on that goes through all of these options for editing photos in Camera Raw. But for now, I just kind of wanted to show you what happens when you edit a raw photo and a proper workflow for doing so. But really quickly, I just want to show you these cool options. Now we have not only an overall exposure slider, which you can just adjust by clicking and dragging. To undo that, you can just double click the slider and it resets. But we also have these individual sliders for editing parts of your image. So just the highlights, just the shadows, just the whites, which are the brightest parts of your image, or just the blacks, which are the darkest. So instead of using the dodge and burn brushes to try to fix the exposure of highlights or shadows, this is probably a better way to do it, a more cleaner way to do it. And then you could use the dodge and burn brushes to add detail and contrast to specific areas, but I would definitely recommend using these overall sliders to fix your overall exposure first. And you'll see if you compare, I know it's hard to see on video, but comparing the sliders here for the raw image versus a JPEG image, you have a ton more room to play with. You have a ton more detail. If I bring up the shadows all the way, there's a lot more detail in the trees that you can see with this raw image compared to the JPEG image. You can really have something that's like almost completely black and bring back that exposure. So what's the workflow though? Once you have made all of your edits in here, you have two options or a couple options. One is to click Open Image. That's going to open up this image as a new layer in a new project. And that's great if you're completely done with editing this raw photo, but that is a destructible way of editing your photo, meaning that we can't come back to Camera Raw and make any adjustments. Say later down the road, you're like, oh wait, the contrast or the exposure is a little off. You won't be able to get back here unless when opening your image, you hold the Shift button down and choose Open Object, which makes this a smart object, which if you remember, smart objects hold more information. It's a better way to edit layers and photos because now we can, in our layer panel, double click the photo itself, not the title, but the photo right here, and it's going to open up Camera Raw again. It saves all of the adjustments we've made, and we can continue editing or tweaking them. So that's the proper workflow I would use for editing your photos in your raw photos in Photoshop. Again, a later section in this course, it goes deeper into actually editing photos with Camera Raw, but I included that later on because not everyone is going to be interested in that section. If you are, though, feel free to jump to that. Learn how to do that, and then come back to where you left off in the course. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.